Hello, podcast world. I'm back. I'm glad you're here with me because we have an incredible guest today who will be going over some really insightful topics that are of interest to marksmen and women of all backgrounds. It's a fun one, and I'm very excited to be able to share her thoughts with you. But first, a few notes. The year is coming to a close, but that doesn't mean we're slowing down our lineup of competitions. We have a variety of options for you during these colder months, including our CMP League matches designed for both rifle and pistol competitors. CMP League matches are held at participating CMP-affiliated clubs and feature such events as 50-shot and 80-shot rifle courses, indoor and outdoor pistol competitions, and carbine and rimfire sport or games matches. Though participants compete at their home ranges, they're matched up against others from across the country for an added challenge. See the full lineup of CMP League matches through our website under the Compete tab, and if you're part of a club that you think would like to host a match, our website has an application for that as well. We also have our monthly airgun matches for adults and juniors wanting to participate in air rifle and air pistol, as well as our CMP Aces Postal for airgun. Like the CMP League, the Aces Postal allows you to compete with others across the nation from your home range. Likewise, junior air rifle athletes should take part in our CMP 3-position air rifle postal event, where top-scoring athletes of the postals are invited to regionals in the spring, followed by nationals in the summer. It's a great match for those looking for competition experience, for meeting new people, and of course, for having fun on the range. And don't sleep on our 500-acre Talladega Marksmanship Park in Alabama, which hosts its own monthly outdoor competitive and educational opportunities, so be sure to check out our website to see the park's full schedule of events. If you're just getting into the sport and don't know where to start, the electronic airgun ranges within our competition centers in Anniston, Alabama, and Camp Perry, Ohio, are open to the public each week, year-round, and offer even more fun on the range, regardless of skill level. For youth, there's even a club at the Camp Perry location, the Junior Rifle Club, for those interested in getting into air rifle. It's taught by our own staff members who are former Division I rifle athletes, and it's the perfect stepping stone toward greater opportunities provided by the sport, like college scholarships or even a trip to the Olympics. If you've never tried our airgun ranges before, we have a great set of FAQs right now on our online newsletter, The First Shot, that explains everything you need to know. Like everything else, you can find The First Shot through our website. That's www.thecmp.org. We've also recently posted new updates from our CEO, Jerry O'Keefe, who goes over the latest on our programs and sales. Worth checking out for sure. My podcast guest today needs a little introduction. She's paved the way for female athletes through the years and continues to provide her wisdom and encouragement to all marksmen and women through her instruction and leadership. As a junior, she and her shooting partner, decorated markswoman in her own right, Julie Cogshaw, became the first all-female winners of the Whistler Boy Junior High Power Rifle Trophy at the 2006 Camp Perry National Matches. Fast forward to the national matches 16 years later, as my guest found herself making history yet again as the first female to ever claim the overall win in the prestigious President's Rifle Match, an event that has been in existence since 1894. In between all those historical milestones, she's accumulated a slew of awards and recognitions in both service rifle and long-range rifle, at the national level during her time as a member of the U.S. Army Marksmanship Unit and with the Army National Guard's All-Guard team. In 2023, she earned the NRA National High Power Rifle Championship win and has no plans of slowing down. She's also putting her focus towards teaching, hoping to pass on all that she's learned throughout her career for the betterment of the sport for generations to come. Of course, I'm talking about Sergeant First Class Amanda Elsenboss. I was thrilled to be able to have a fantastic conversation with her about her early life, her start in marksmanship, those incredible moments when she etched new chapters in time, and she even gave us a look into long-range rifle competition and her plans for the future. It was a conversation I was really looking forward to having, and one that I think you'll enjoy as well. Let's get into it. Here's Sergeant First Class Amanda Elsenboss. So I'm here with Sergeant First Class Amanda Elsenboss. Thanks for coming on, Amanda. I really appreciate you doing this with us.
You're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
So if you could you go into your background a little bit, where you grew up and how you developed an interest in marksmanship?
Okay, so I grew up in Connecticut and started shooting with my father, honestly, at a pretty young age. I think I was first shooting shotgun with him at maybe 6. And then my dad wanted to get my sisters and I involved. So we lucked out and we had a small board range 15 minutes from my home. So my sisters and I all started shooting there at about 9 years old. And then when I was 13, I went to a Connecticut State Rifle and Revolver high power clinic. That is when I instantly fell in love with high power and I jumped into it with both feet. I was constantly asking my dad to buy me an AR-15. Needless to say, that didn't happen for at least another 2 years. So I borrowed a rifle from the state association, and eventually, after I had shot it long enough, we, broke down and got me my own AR. And then for long range, I started shooting Palma in 2006. I had learned about the under 25, under 21 team for the United States, and there was a World Championships taking place in Connaught, Canada in 2007. So 2006, I picked up a borrowed Palma rifle and shot the tryout for the World Championships. And since then, I've just jumped headfirst into long range and high power.
So you've been doing this for a while. Talk about your time competing as a junior. How did your training as a junior kind of set you up for future successes?
At the time, Connecticut had a very good program when I first got started, and the association had rifles and equipment that you could borrow for them. And over time, it's like any of the small state clubs started to diminish a little bit with all the laws that are happening. But they got me started right off the bat. And I remember reloading constantly as the junior teams had agreements with Berger or Sierra to purchase their seconds or other projectiles at a discounted price. So my dad, he was like, "Hey, you're going to learn how to reload, and that is going to be what you're doing." So, luckily with the military, I haven't had to reload since then. But as a junior, I reloaded for 7 years of shooting. And my dad barely ever reloaded for me. He said, "I'm not doing that for you." So when I first got started, early 2003, Connecticut had a massive team, and I had a couple of really good coaches. I had Brad Palmer, Wally Lyman, John Callenbach, and they had the support of a ton of adults who would drive us to either Connecticut State matches, which were only 200-yard ranges, or out of the state. We basically traveled up and down the East Coast, and the adults kind of just took us under their wing. So Quantico used to hold a clinic every year. The United States Marine Corps held a clinic down at Quantico, and we would go to their clinic in May, and then somehow we would manage to go to another clinic sometimes in June in Camp Butner, and then we would have the Marine Corps clinic at Camp Perry. So over the years as a junior, I probably went to 20 different Marine Corps clinics. I definitely probably never expected to go to that many clinics, but it helped me become a better shooter, and I got to meet some of the greats. So during those years, I looked up to Lance Dement, Lance Hopper, Grant Singley, Ty Cooper, Brandon Green, Julia Watson. Those were the people who were on the military teams, and it was, how do I get to where they are at? So that drove me to be a little bit better. And I did luck out to an extent. Like as a junior with the Connecticut team, we had some major accomplishments. So I was part of Connecticut's 6-man junior team. And then I was part of the first winning 2 female junior team to win the Whistler Boy. So
Wow.
that year was fun. They announced it as the Whistler Girl Trophy instead of the Whistler Boy Trophy.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then the next year, Washington also put together a female team that ended up winning the Whistler Boy. So there's been some great moments in my junior career, things that launched me upward and onward.
Yeah, I'd say so. That's not a bad start for your career there.
Not a bad start.
So kind of going back a little bit, you talked a lot about shooting with your father. What's his background? How did he get you interested in it?
My dad, before he had 3 girls, he was an avid shotgun shooter. So he grew up shooting trap and skeet and sporting clays, and that was kind of his bread and butter. And my grandmother used to instruct small bore. So she was one of the first female instructors in the state of Connecticut as a small bore coach. And it just kind of all fell into place that then we started shooting small bore as well to lead to high power and long range.
It's a fun thing to be able to do together and kind of connect with.
Yeah, I mean, like when I go home and I see my dad, we still go and we try to shoot sporting clays or trap and skeet. And I remember the first time I beat him, I was so happy because that is his sport, not my sport. And I was super excited on sporting clays to finally beat him.
How happy was he?
He was, he was not happy at all.
Oh, that's so cool. That's awesome. So you talked a lot also about your influences. A lot of them military marksmanship members. It kind of seems like and that I assume that's a path that you decided to take as your own, and probably partly because of those influences that you had. So why did you decide? Why did you decide the military was the route you wanted to take, and why did you make the decision to join the U.S. Army Marksmanship Unit?
At the time, I thought that shooting was the world to me. I didn't want to be going to college. I had met all of these people, whether they were in the Army or on the Marine Corps team, and I had decided that that was where I wanted to be. So the difference between the teams is at the Army Marksmanship Unit, you can stay on that team for an extended period of time. And with the Marine Corps team, the active duty Marine Corps team, you're never really guaranteed to make it to the team. And then once you're there, you're only guaranteed a small amount of time to be there. So I kind of took those two odds and said, I want to try to go to the Army Marksmanship Unit. That's where I want to be. And I looked up to the AMU. I knew individuals who were on the team, and that was where I wanted to go. So I went to college for 2 years in Connecticut and in Pennsylvania. And during that time, I was shooting for Bushmaster and Remington. And Ken Roxborough was very influential in actually getting me to the AMU because we went and we joined the AMU on a May timeframe train up at Camp Perry. So I was right there with the entire team, with Emil Praslik, with Kyle Ward. And after that trip, we were down at Fort Benning shooting the Bushmaster Cup. And Emil Praslik sat me down. He said, if this is what you really want to do, we'll write you an offer letter. So that offer letter basically puts you straight into the Army and brings you down to Fort Benning. So when they came up to inter service, there used to be a match prior to inter service, and I was there, and I was super excited to get this silly little piece of paper that said, hey, more or less, hey, you're going to go into the Army and you just have to bring this to a recruiter. So after the Nationals of 2009, I was heading off to basic training and AIT.
Wow, that's amazing. And how did being part of the U.S. Army Marksmanship Unit affect your abilities as a markswoman? What sort of things did you learn there, and who were your biggest influences? You kind of already talked about this because you know your influences were not your teammates, but what kind of influences did you have while you were there?
Being on the AMU, it gave me the opportunity to train with some of the best marksmen in the country, whether that was on the service rifle range, on Easley range, or whether that was on the small bore range. Luckily, we did some cross training got to experience many different avenues and approaches to different techniques. So while I was there, I learned different techniques for nerves and match pressure and was forced to try those different styles of shooting. So I remember going down range to try different standing positions, trying to make it work. And every week seemed to be, let's try something new or something different. And finally things would click and you would practice that way for a month and a half. And then something else would change. And now you're trying something new. So it was a constantly changing environment with not just one person giving you feedback, but potentially 12 or 15 people looking at your position and saying, you need to change this, try that. So while that can be a little overwhelming at times, it forces you to get better. And when you're shooting with better shooters who are shooting a higher score, you naturally strive to be at that top level of marksmanship. So while I was down there, I would go over to the small bore range. I could get Sergeant McPhail to help me with my prone position. And those are resources that I never had or would never have imagined having. So when I was a junior, I didn't really practice. I considered everything inside of Connecticut to be a practice match because we only had 200-yard ranges. And then everything outside of the state was what I deemed a competition. So when I got down to the AMU, now I was practicing 5 days a week. Monday through Friday, we practiced. And if there was a match on the weekend, we were shooting on the weekend. So it was nothing to go 2 months of shooting Monday through Friday. And given you're not shooting a ton of rounds, you might only be shooting 80 or 100 rounds, but you were out there every day fine-tuning every piece of your process to make it better. That was the life. You were around all of your idols, all of everybody you looked up to. While initially, shocked PFC down there, you're trying not to get in the way, and everybody's giving you feedback. So it was a lot to process at the beginning, but at the end of the day, the team was definitely trying to make me better and make themselves better and trying to share the knowledge and information that they may have gained over their 5 years or 20 years of shooting.
Yeah, what an incredible opportunity where you get to actually be alongside, be teammates with these people that you used to idolize and look up to for so long, and now they're your comrades. I'm sure they're probably learning from you as much as you're learning from them. So what a really neat opportunity to have there.
I remember being so nervous to walk into Easley Range. So that is the range down there in the building. And I could never explain it to anybody, to go from, being friends with somebody on the range to now you're my boss. I'm now enlisted, and okay, I'm going to walk in this door and we are no longer on a first name basis. Okay. So that was definitely a moment of, oh, what did I get myself into?
A little bit of an adjustment.
Yeah.
That's still pretty cool though. So I had a lot of amazing experiences with that team. A lot of wins over the years, and like you said, memories and learning, lots of learning situations and things you were able to pick up from all the members of the AMU. But eventually you decided you wanted to move on and do something else. What sparked that decision to move on from the USAMU?
While I was down at the AMU, I just had the feeling that I wanted to do something else with my time and my skills. So that led me to working for Geisley Automatics and joining the Pennsylvania National Guard. So I went up to Geisley, which is a AR-15, M16, M4 company, and I was testing their rifles for them. So it was something that was different. It was something that I could use the skills that I had, and the same thing applied to the Pennsylvania Guard. I fell into the marksmanship training unit, and that's where I still am. And I am consistently teaching courses of basic rifle or a squad designated marksman, live fire shoot house, different rifle courses to the soldiers that are in Pennsylvania. So they would never have had the feedback or the knowledge that I might have because they are not going to active duty courses.
Oh. And you enjoy that and getting to kind of pass on your knowledge that you have learned to other people?
I definitely enjoy being able to share information or find the piece that somebody's missing in their position or their mental game.
Oh yeah. Kind of help people out the way that you were helped out. It's kind of a way of paying it forward. It's neat to
Correct.
be able to do that. Yeah. So you made this move and no longer on the USAMU. Your career didn't stop. You joined the All Guard team. You kind of talked about all the resources you had while at the USAMU. So when you didn't have those resources anymore, how did your training and competition schedule kind of change? Was it difficult to uphold your skills to the level that you were?
Well, so I left the AMU October of 2019. And as it would happen, 2020 came around and we were all lovely dealing with COVID. So that was not smooth sailing at all. It was
What a time to make a life change.
yeah, what a time. So I left. I was in a new place. I didn't really know anybody in the area, and all of the ranges shut down. So I knew that Reed Range was close to me. I knew New Holland was close to me in Pennsylvania, but it appeared that all the ranges were shut down. So training came to a halt completely. And then I remember the day that I found out that Reed Range was opening back up and they were holding their first match. And I drove 3.5 hours, 3 hours to get there. And I'm pretty sure everybody there thought I was crazy. I went around, I hugged everybody. I said, "It's so nice to see you." I couldn't wait to be shooting. And it was definitely difficult because I went from practicing every day to now I had 9 months off of the gun once I left because everything shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So my brain kind of started to play those little tricks like, you took a lot of time off. I wasn't shooting the scores that I thought I should. And that made me almost more determined to figure out how to use my limited training now to the best of my advantage. I'm not really a person who enjoys dry firing, so that was not an option for me. I was not going to go home and dry fire. So when I went to a matchup at Reed, if nobody had an issue with it, I would shoot the match, and then we would do awards, we would do everything, and I would go back down range and I would do some training on the backside. Or I would come up early or I would stay late and I would do some training there. So that club opened up my resources to being able to be shooting and getting back into the groove of things. So I just had to wait for the Guard to get everything together with us being shut down for COVID. And once COVID restrictions were lifted, then I was back to shooting for the Guard and meshing back together with that team.
Yeah, it's got to be a little bit different. Anyway, because so the All Guard team, you're all over the country, right? You're in different places and.
Correct. Yeah, the All Guard, you can be from Utah, Arkansas, anywhere, any state, and then we try to come together for a practice or we come together for the matches.
Very cool. So, going back to your whole ordeal, you obviously made it work because when you came back to the 2021 national matches, once, we took the break in 2020 because that COVID thing. And then 2021 started back up with the national matches. And you were a member of the all-guard team. While there, you set a national record score as an individual in the national trophy team event with an amazing score of 534x, which is crazy. What did you feel like being able to show up in a new uniform and still give such a high-level performance?
2021 I had decided it was going to be my year. We all had the year off, more or less. We maybe shot some of the matches that came up, but it was the year to regain everything that you needed. So 2021, I practiced whenever I could, which was not much at all, and I was determined to shoot well at Perry. I did everything I could for my training on my own to maximize the time. So luckily, the all-guard team, we managed to do a team training week, and the team has fantastic shooters with an unlimited amount of capabilities, and we just needed to kind of tap into it. So the team did a train up, and we worked out some kinks, figured out how to, I guess, meld together as a team a little bit better. So that whole week at Perry, I was shooting very well. I would just have kind of a hiccup along the way, and I went out for that 6-man morning, and it was, hey, no more hiccups, no more bumps in the road. Like, today is the day. And Major Freeman, Kirk Freeman, he was coaching myself, and we shot good standing, we shot good sitting, 300, and we get to 600, and I know that I'm part of the first pair, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to be coaching. So we're trying to get a feel of the condition, yet also hurry up, get off the line, so that then we can coach the other shooters. So I finished 600, and I 100% did not think I shot a 200. I didn't have a scope up there to see where my rounds were hitting. I felt like we were getting a lot of adjustments and some big holds. So I thought, okay, I probably shot a 99 or a 98. And I get done. Freeman says, hey, that was a 200. Congratulations. Hurry up, get off the line. Come on back up here. So get back up, and now I'm coaching, and it has dawned on me that I've shot a 500, but it hasn't dawned on me the X count. And at the end of the day, when you looked at the score, it was pretty unbelievable to look at it. And I remember the team going, oh my God, like, that's ridiculous. And also, the people that I care about, or the people who care about me, whether they're civilians or they are still on the AMU or whomever it might be. And I went up to Emil at one point, and I had told him the night before I was going to shoot a 500. And I remember going back up to him and just saying, I did it. He was like, oh yeah? So it definitely is part of a mental game. If you can't even see yourself doing something, how do you expect to do it? So I was dead set I was going to shoot a 500. It just was a matter of how it all shook out.
You manifested it for yourself. You had the confidence in yourself and went out and made it happen.
Tried to.
Yeah. No, you did it. Good job. So the following year, at the 2022 national matches, even more success came your way when you became the first female to ever win the prestigious President's Rifle match. Can you go back and talk about that experience? Did the win change your confidence as a markswoman in any way?
I wouldn't say that winning the President's 100 or President's Rifle match, depending on how you look at it or how you say the match's name, I wouldn't say that it changed my outset, but it helped me to become more confident in myself and confident that the amount of training that I am doing is working. So at times it is hard to stay at the top of the game if you aren't practicing or shooting often. And for me to stay at the best of my capabilities, that is also including that mental management aspect when I can away from the range to then use it on the range. So the two need to kind of go hand in hand, I like to think.
Mhm.
And when we came out to Presidents in 2022, well, once again, I kind of set out with that goal. The goal is winning the Presidents. I will admit every single year that's the goal, but but this year it was a serious goal of I'm going to win the Presidents, and this is what's going to happen. So throughout the match, I somehow managed to keep my head together, even in a windy condition at the beginning, and shoot 99s the whole way back. So that gave me a little bit of an advantage going into the shoot off. And the first shot, it was, as we like to say, out in the pumpkin patch. So it was out in no man's land, and then a couple of 9s back to back became a little frustrating, and I had to definitely tighten up to pull out the win.
And when that's happening in the moment, how do you stay in it? How do you not just be like, oh man, well now I'm done? How do you pull yourself back into that?
For me, what I resorted to was the fact that setup for the President's 100 is kind of one shot at a time. So I, reevaluated how I was making win calls or what I was looking at to make my win call, and said, okay, you have it bracketed. You need to stop playing this game. Like, shoot to center. And then once I found center, I understood what the wind was worth. And now I could just treat it like individual shots as it should be and not worry about the past shot or a future shot.
Yeah. And it worked out for you?
It ended up working out.
Yeah, in that instance, definitely did. And I was actually there for that. I witnessed it for myself. It was a really, really cool moment. And what I thought one of the coolest things about that too was after the shoot off, you had so many juniors come up to you, young female juniors especially, I would say, just come up and they wanted a picture with you, and all of a sudden you were you can tell that you are their influence. So I just think that was such a cool moment to be. It was a part of history. It really was. So I can't imagine being you. How do you be you? That is amazing.
It was definitely a strange feeling. I guess that is how, the greats of the past have felt as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you do something as a first, or you do something that's a record, and everybody wants to be a part of it, and they look up to you, and I know some people joke like, oh, figure out what they eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner on match day or prior to match day and do the exact same thing. That's a little much, but like any of those juniors that I saw, like I'm looking right now, I can see the article that was written. My sister's published it for me, or like printed it out for me, so I can see it. And there's a photo with Haley Robinson, and I remember her coming up to me and saying, I'm so proud of you, so excited, like I want to be up here one day. It's like, you'll be here. Keep at it.
How cool. Well, so we've talked already about just a few of your accomplishments in surface rifle. There are so many more that we haven't talked about. We'd be here all day. But another big area where you've certainly been a force is within long range rifle. You even won the National Rifle Association Long Range Championship back in 2019. You talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but when did you become involved with that discipline, and was it an easy transition in learning how to compete in those types of matches with a long range rifle?
With long range, it can be a little daunting at times because you are potentially anywhere from 800, 900, 1,000 yards away. Most long range matches are at 1,000 yards unless you're shooting Palma. So it can be kind of scary at times when you're wondering, I can barely see my target. How am I going to make it there? But I started with Palma. So I started shooting Palma rifle, which is a 308 with iron sights as a junior, and that was to go to the World Championships up in Canada. So that got my toes wet, got me into the water of long range, and then I had to figure it out. So it just continued to start getting almost more difficult when you look at it, because now if you're going to shoot in the any category, so now you can choose what caliber. You can choose if you're going to shoot iron sights only. Are you going to shoot a scope? Are you going to shoot more than one gun? That is kind of where long range differs to service rifle, because you can kind of pick and choose your poison. You can pick, okay, for scope matches, I want to shoot a 7 SOM. For iron matches, I'm going to shoot my 6.5 Creedmoor. And that allows you a wider, broader spectrum of getting into the shooting sports.
Yeah, and for those who may be listening and may not have any knowledge on long range, could you explain what constitutes a long range rifle and what makes those matches different from service rifle competition?
Okay, so service rifle competitions are primarily with a M16 style rifle, and you're shooting 200 to 600 yards. So for long range, you can still shoot service rifle, but you are using that service rifle, whether it is the M16 style or maybe an M14, at 1,000 yards. So that is potentially at max capabilities. And then with any rifle, I started to mention, it is any caliber with any optic. The match may dictate, hey, these 2 matches are fired with a scope and these 2 matches are fired with irons. So to shoot the match correctly, to be in the running to win it, you have to shoot scope and irons. But you can always shoot iron sights in general in an optics class, because you're just making it harder on yourself. But you cannot shoot a scope in an irons match and still be capable of winning it outright. And then we have Palmer rifle. So Palmer rifle for some people is easy. It can be either a 223 or a 308 caliber rifle, and you have to shoot iron sights. And then in the United States, you must be shooting less than 185 grain bullet. And if you're shooting internationally, it's a 155 grain bullet or less. So with Palmer rifle, it kind of gets rid of all of the choices and options that you might have compared to shooting any rifle. But you also at times have a rifle that is inferior in a wind condition or different conditions. You might say, oh man, I really wish I had more gun, or I wish I could put a scope on. So those categories exist so that you are competing against others who are shooting the same style rifle, and a Palmer rifle can still win the outright nationals, and they can win the Palma category. So it doesn't really limit you to what you're capable of doing.
And we have in our matches also categories of FOPIN and FTR classes outside of the other ones that you mentioned.
Yes, and I think you also have tactical.
And tactical as well, AR tactical, yep. Who might be attracted to those categories?
So for the FOPIN or the FTR, and for the AR tactical, that may be more promising to somebody who might not want to put on a shooting jacket and wants to use a bipod. So on the F class side, I don't fully understand everything that they do, but I know that there are some restrictions for FTR compared to FOPIN. And that is with a optic and you're shooting off of a bipod and a rest. So that is potentially for maybe older generations or younger generations who are trying to get into shooting but might not be able to. If you're younger, you might not be able to hold a rifle all the way. So now you have a bipod that you can rest it on, and you can put on recoil reducers on the back end so that you're not getting hit quite so hard. So F class has its own perks. I've tried shooting a couple rounds out of it. I am not good at it. I don't think I will ever venture that way. It's harder than I thought it would be.
Really? Oh.
At least when I was practicing.
We'll leave that to other people then. You just stay out of there.
Yeah, I'm not going to go that way.
So for the CMP, long-range rifle is a fairly new program we're working on growing. You kind of mentioned some things, but in your opinion, what are some of the best parts of long range? What makes it such a challenging and enjoyable match to shoot? In other words, why should someone maybe give it a try?
Why not? Okay, so it's long range. You're 10 football fields away, potentially, if you are at 1,000 yards. That is a really long distance to be away from the target. And now you are trying to hit a 10-inch X-ring. So that is, at times, the most exciting thing in the world, or the most frustrating thing, depending. But long range, it is a feeling that is hard to explain to somebody, to be that far away from a target and make the correct wind calls and the correct adjustments and manage to hit your target exactly where you need to.
Yeah, I always find it super fascinating to watch. It's amazing to me that anyone can hit a target from that far.
It definitely takes, a second or maybe more than a second for the round to go from the firing line to the target.
Mm-hmm. So if there's someone out there who is interested in competing in long range but may not have a 1,000-yard range around them to train on, what's some advice you have in how to get started?
If I was getting started in long range and I didn't have a 1,000-yard range, I would try to find a range that maybe goes to 500 yards. So you can get smaller size targets to replicate that 1,000-yard, but at some point you're going to have to go to the 1,000-yard line because you'll have to do some load development. You might think you have an awesome load at 500 yards or 600 yards, but just doesn't have enough oomph to get to the target all the way when you finally back it out to 1,000. So if you're looking at beginning to shoot long range, a great starting point even is a prone league, whether it's with a 22 or maybe there's a 600-yard range that does a prone league. They're starting to shoot these 100-yard 22 caliber matches. And I think they might even be shooting like a little bit further in distance as well. And that is replicating to an extent the wind effect on a 22 caliber bullet that you would be getting with a bigger caliber rifle at 1,000 yards. So if I was just getting into it, I would try to find a range that if I could get to 500 yards, perfect. If I could get to 600 yards, even better. And go out and practice, whether it's with iron sights or a scope, and start to shoot small groups. And when the regular target begins to be a little bit easier, you think you're shooting too many X's, put up a smaller target. Put up a 300-yard target and shoot at that instead. There are always ways to make that training harder. And then when you get to 1,000-yard range, you are going to be shooting small groups. Now you just have to work on your wind reading skills to make sure that you are capable of picking up on that wind change, registering in your brain, okay, something's changed. Okay, that wind has definitely picked up. It's worth a minute and a half. Put a minute and a half on and shoot. So you will kind of have to rewire your brain to understand what those pickups and let-offs look like because you're so much further away.
So before you go, we should talk about your personal impact on the sport. I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit about how after the president's win that you had these juniors come up to you as an influence. There's certainly been many exceptional female competitors throughout the generations who have made their own marks on the sport. Yet marksmanship continues to be a male-dominated world. Why do you think that is, and what do you do to encourage young women to become involved? Also, are there some things others can do to show young women the positive aspects of the sport?
When it comes to shooting, I would definitely say that it is still a male-dominant sport, just simply because it's shooting. At the end of the day, it's guns, and that has always been something that the men have done. I definitely think that almost any range that I've ever gone to is definitely happy that females are coming out and that women are getting engaged into the shooting sports. They are open, more than happy to let you borrow equipment or teach you different things and try to help you. So, trying to get more people, more women, more juniors, more people in general, regardless of their sex, just take them shooting. So a lot of women, when they're younger, they get started in dance or horseback riding or any other sport that you could imagine, but it's never a, hey, let's get you started in shooting. Unless you luck out and somebody in your family shoots competitively or your neighbor shoots competitively and they say, hey, come on out, let's go to the range. So throughout time, like, there have been different organizations. Women on Target comes to mind, and they try to get more women involved. And it does help. I think that it definitely helps, and it starts to get the information to spread, but then it's a matter of keeping somebody interested in it and keeping them coming. So my take on it is, don't just look to invite a woman to go somewhere to learn how to shoot. Invite anybody, whether they're a junior and they can just come and watch, whether it is an adult who maybe has never shot before. Invite them out to try the sport. And if it so happens to be a woman or a junior who's timid about it, explain to them the highlights, the joys, the fact that you get some fresh air, you get to meet new people, and shooting doesn't know what your gender is. Shooting doesn't care what your gender is. Shooting is just correlated to your ability to pull a trigger and hit what you're aiming for. So convince everybody, come on out and learn something new. See how accurate your hand-eye coordination is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a neat perspective, or a good way of putting the sport into summary. Is it's a level playing field for everybody. Your age, like you said, your gender, no matter what it might be, your background. If you put the work into it and you can, hit the target, then you're with everyone else there. And I think that's just a really unique sport to be a part of, to be able to do that.
Correct. And this is the one sport that, okay, men are stronger than women 90% of the time. In the shooting sport, women can be just as strong, so to say, as anybody else.
We've talked about a lot of things. Out of all the highlights of your career, is there anything in particular that you hold as a favorite moment or an important accomplishment?
I have been lucky to have some major and minor accomplishments in my career, but a few of them still do stand out. So, when I was at the beginning of my career to currently, I was lucky to be shooting on paper targets a lot. And by shooting on paper targets, I can hold on to my clean targets. So I have my first 100 that I shot standing. And then I have the first 100 with 10Xs that I shot rapid fire sitting, or that I shot at 300 rapid fire prone. So those are important to me because they they were the first 100. They set me up to be able to shoot more hundreds. And being able to have those targets, while it might be just a piece of paper with some holes in it, it was a lot of sweat and tears and years to get me to that point. So I have upstairs, I have the first 100 that I shot at Fort Benning, and I also have the first 200 that I ever shot standing. And they allow me to look back and see the stepping stones that got me to where I am now. So not only those targets, but the memories on and off the range go with them. So the accomplishments might, we already talked about some of them, whether it was President's 100 or a big 500. Those aren't necessarily the important thing to me. Yes, I love being the center, being able to win that competition, to put all my training into play. But at the end of the day, it is all of the work that it took to get me there that sometimes matters more in my mind.
So where do you go from here? What other goals do you have for yourself, or what does your future look like?
My future. So that's always a great question. And it's still completely around shooting. So I've managed to have a couple of trophies that have escaped my grasp. One of the big ones is Mountain Man out at CMP Nationals. That is a trophy that I'm striving to win. I just need to piece everything together. And National Trophy Individual, the major trophies, they are trophies that I still want to win. I would love to win the President's again, and to be able to share the knowledge that I have. So I've met a couple of people this summer that have asked me for help, and I've reached out to them, or I've sent them some photos or videos or ways to set up your sling to try to further the knowledge that the shooting environment has. So it does me no good to hold on to it. And if somebody is capable of using that information to help them to shoot better, that's what I want to be doing. So for right now, I will be setting my goals for the matches that I plan on going to and winning or finishing in the top 3, and represent myself and the National Guard, and see where everything shakes out.
We haven't seen the last of you, have we?
We have not seen the last of me. No, not yet.
There's more to come. All right. Amanda, thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us here. Thank you for everything you've done for the sport already, and everything that you continue to do for the sport. I know it's like I said before, you have a lot of people looking up to you, and you're a great role model. So keep it up, and thank you again.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me to share some small tidbits about shooting and all of the information that we may have gathered in our brains. Now, hopefully others can try to piece it together to figure out what will work for them.
We need more Amanda Elsenbosses in the world. She's such a positive individual, not just in marksmanship, but in life. And she's so approachable as well. I've seen her at so many events over the years, and she's quite known for her openness and friendliness with those around her. And for those who know her, that beaming smile on the range. Amanda is someone who truly has a love for the sport of marksmanship and only wants to see it improve and thrive. She's made her own marks already, but I have a feeling there are more to come. I'm really grateful that she took the time to join our little podcast and allow us a personal look into her life. And I hope her words were helpful to others in their own journeys, whether within marksmanship or not. We do more here at the CMP than put on competitions and sell old firearms. We know the good of the sport and the importance of our mission of safety. And it all goes back to not only respecting firearms, but also those around us. Through marksmanship, we hope to encourage the ideas of commitment, perseverance, diligence, community, and camaraderie. After all, life is about enjoyment, and we hope that's what you find from your time with us. It's an incredible opportunity we're given to be the representatives of a sport that has lasted centuries and one that continues to evolve and grow. We have the resources as well as countless inspiring individuals within our realm to help us reveal just how motivating, fun, and exciting marksmanship can be. The range is where we can put all our differences aside and sit back and enjoy each other's company. From what I've found through my many years of encounters with our supporters, that's really the heart of marksmanship. So let's all be Amanda Elsenbosses. Let's keep reaching higher, show our encouragement for one another, and most importantly, never stop smiling. Until next time, stay safe out there.